Once again, you're welcome, and everyone online, you're welcome to Matters Arising. This is a platform where we discuss topics that relate to young people, trends, and timely challenges that we face in our everyday life. And today we've decided to pick this topic about grades. So we are shifting into the academics area. And when I called go to academics, I have one only person I need to call, which is my wonderful friend, a professor. Uh, he's a wonderful professor, and I will let him introduce himself. Just to give himself, I'll give you a background of. I know if you can take 30 minutes to talk about his background, but I'm sure he has a very short version, or he has a shorter version that he can give to you, even as we proceed. So, thank you so much, Professor Kayode. Please, can you just introduce yourself briefly? Thank you.
Yeah. So, yes, I'm currently an assistant professor at Anderson University in Anderson, South Carolina. Apparently, there's another Anderson University in Indiana, so just be very careful to differentiate the two.
Okay.
This journey into becoming going into academia, I started off being a physics major. Um, so my first degree, I have a bachelor's and a master's in physics. Did some extensive research in different fields, and then switched over, and did a master's and a PhD in bioengineering. So my terminal degree is in bioengineering. So even though I started in physics, I still have the bio side, and I always claim that the bio side is harder than the physics. Physics is a lot easier. Physics has just a few equations. And just to describe everything you need to know biology, you can't describe the Krebs cycle or any of those other crazy things with just a short set of equations. You have to memorize, you have to repeat things, and of course, the way you study, we're going to talk about that later today. The way you study does affect your success in each of these courses. And it doesn't matter whether you're familiar or comfortable with a particular field of study or not, like for me. So I might share a few of my own experiences as we go along. But right now, I'm married to a beautiful woman, Abigail Karunwi, and we have three wonderful kids. So if somewhere during this conversation they're supposed to be taking a nap, if they come up, just bear with me. It's just two of us and the kids, so all hands on deck.
Great, great. Thank you so much. And yeah, I don't mind your boys coming to be part of the discussion. Yeah, so today we're talking about grades. Do grades matter, and how to achieve academic excellence. So, but just for clarity purposes, let's not assume that everybody know what we're talking about. Let's define grades. So what would you say? You've been in this line for a while now. How would you define grades?
So grades is the reward, or maybe not reward. Grades are the consequence of what you've put in during the entire semester for a class. And I say consequence because it can be a good consequence or a bad one. If you put in the right amount of effort and work during the semester, it would usually reflect in this good grade. And if you put in minimal effort or work towards it, it also results in a bad grade. So it's a way to assess your performance or sometimes they say ability, which I shy away from using, but just to assess your performance in a particular subject matter. In the US, where I'm based, it's we usually use an A, B, C, D, F scale. Different schools have different numbers that correspond to an A, B, C, D, and F. Some of them use the plus or minus scale. So there's an A plus, an A minus, or an A. So for every letter grade, there's a plus or minus, except an F. F is just F. F is standard everywhere. I think in every country, if you have an F, F is just the same all across the board. Um, So you want to pay attention to your school or to your system of education and make sure you understand what the grade scale is like. For some people, they use numbers, some people use letters, but there's always going to be a particular set of numbers or letters that represent a passing grade and a certain number that represent a failing grade. Some of them would allow you to proceed to the next step in a particular sequence of courses. Some of them are prerequisites. So if you need to have a minimum of a C or B or A, the courses will always specify in part one, to be able to go to part two. So those grades do also affect whether you can actually advance in your career path or in your subject matter. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I think as you were talking, I remember that I've been privileged to be graded by two different systems in two different continents. And I remember when I was in college, in fact, the grading system was so strict that what we just pray for 50. In fact, we don't look for uh, we don't look for C or anything. Once I get some, if you just land on 50.1, oh my God, you will share the testimony. You will share the testimony. You share the testimony on in the church. Then I came to this other continent. I came to America, where my first semester I got A. I'm like, what? Wait, A. Is it true? Is it me that is am I the one that is now brilliant, or what is going what is going on? So definitely we have two different systems or different systems of grading in different places. But for you, Prof, I want to just ask you. I know you've graded a lot of papers. Give us a little sneak peek. How do you grade your students? How do you grade? What do you look out for? That you say, okay, I'm going to give this guy A. I'm going to give this, B or C or D. How do you grade? Just a little secret. Yeah.
One thing I would say before I answer that question is it's always going to be very advisable for you to pray for your professors to be in a very, very happy and good frame of mind
Oh
before
my.
they start grading anything. Um, because even though professors might try to be objective when they're grading, if they're in a very sour mood or they're very stressed out by something going on at home or at work or something of that nature, it's going to spill over into how they assess or grade the class.
Hmm.
But when the professor is in a very, very happy mood, be like, oh, they made this mistake. Oh, you know what? I know they're trying to learn. Professor will look for excuses and, get through things. So one thing I try to do, though, is to ensure that when I grade, I try to be in the same frame of mind for every single thing. I don't like
Hmm.
stopping my grading halfway
Hmm.
and then now picking up later on, because then my frame of mind is going to be different during those two exact periods, and I can't recreate the same frame.
Hmm.
I want to grade everybody the same way so that their performances relative to each other is still similar.
Hmm.
So I always try to do that. I always try to ensure that my grading is always fair and
Hmm.
consistent. Um, but when I grade, I I have to make sure that the questions I set would reflect what I want to evaluate the students on.
Okay.
So any test I give, there are always some key concepts or key content I want to ensure that the students
Hmm.
understand. Um, I usually give a mix up of questions on my test. I give like multiple choice and free response. The free response you can get partial credit. The
Hmm.
multiple choice is either you get it or you miss it.
Yeah.
I try to give that balance so that people that are good at multiple choice have a chance.
Yeah.
People that are good at free response have a
Okay.
chance. But the free response is really where I try to obtain. I try to get into students'
Okay.
mind, see how they're thinking. Do they actually understand the concept?
Hmm.
And I try to grade their understanding as opposed to their answer.
Hmm. Good.
So I am looking at, do they understand how they're going? Are they thinking through the approach? Um, Rather than them just plugging in answers into some what I call magic equation. I teach physics. That's one of the courses I teach.
Hmm.
So I don't want them to just say that, oh, I got the answer. It was 70.2 meters. So, you have to give me the full credit. You can get the right answer
Hmm.
and still have just 60% of the overall score
Hmm.
on that problem. If I saw that it's like it seems like you cheated or you memorized something, you're not demonstrating your understanding of the subject matter. So I usually grade understanding rather than answers. Yeah.
Answers. Wow.
But that's me. That's my
Mm.
own way of grading, because I've
Mm.
always told my students that I want them to actually show me that they actually understand the
Yeah.
approach. I would prefer for a student to get a B
Mm.
in my class and actually understand how to think through,
Okay.
than for them to get an A and
Okay.
still have no idea what's even going on.
Wow. Wow, that's interesting. I think everybody would like to have a professor like you. And what you said at the beginning is so important, saying that, the mood of the grader or the professor actually spills into um, what you're doing, what the papers you're grading.
Yeah.
And now that means the prayer we pray those days are very valid. Those days we just take a professor's name and we begin to bind and say, Father, touch the life of this professor. Oh God. So that was very valid. And for those online, it means writing your exams is one aspect. Praying for your professors on how they mark it, how they grade your papers also is very important. So don't just relax after writing an exam. You also want to pray that the mood of the person will be okay. All right. That is very, very valid. And that's what we are learning from our professor. And if you have any question, even as we discuss online, please you be free to comment, be free to put down your question, and I will take your questions. Okay. Now let's even ask you, Professor. We're talking about grades, but do they really matter in achieving academic excellence or in your career path? Do we, should we be concerned so much about our grades as we think about our career pursuits?
Yes, that's actually a very good question. And my answer is yes and no.
Mhm.
And I'll clarify why I say that.
Okay.
So while preparing for this talk, a few people also reached out to me when they saw my question on my status.
Mhm.
And one of them made a comment. She said, let me see if I can find her comment to read.
Mhm.
She said that if you see, like the letter C, the grade C, if you see your way to your undergraduate degree, then you may not see, as in seeing with your eyes, a good higher education program to enter. And what she's saying is that if you average your way through your undergraduate program, so you average a C, a 2.0 on a 4.0 scale, well, that's fine. You'll pass, you get a degree, but it's not going to really help you to advance into a graduate program that would actually give you more opportunities to actually earn a larger amount of money overall, as well as give you more opportunities to be effective in your career path. So in that situation, yes, your grades do matter. Your grades essentially act as a way to open a door
Mhm.
to allow you to access certain job opportunities, gets you into a company. But how well you do in that company, how well you succeed, has zero um, things to do with your actual grade.
Mhm.
If you have a 3.0 GPA and somebody has a 4.0 GPA and you both work at the same company, you might be surprised that you as a 3.0 GPA person would actually we will actually succeed better at that company because of the approach you take.
Mhm.
So once more, it goes back to what I said earlier. When I grade and assess people, I try to ensure that I focus more on them understanding the process, on their critical thinking skills. That is a bigger determinant of how well you do in any career path rather than grades. So someone has a question here that how can I maintain good grades
Mhm.
while keeping my relationship with God, especially in the hard seasons? I feel like they've taken a sneak peek at
Yeah.
some things I was planning to talk about today. So
Mhm.
that's good. We'll bring that up.
Yeah.
Um, honestly, balance is a very, very key thing to do. if you're an undergraduate in any university or college, it begins to become very difficult to balance things out because different assignments, different projects, team-based projects, individual projects, classes, and of course your own personal life. And if you're involved in a church or society organization, those will also pull you. And you can't forget you have to find time to sleep, to eat, and all those good things. So honestly, during my undergraduate days, um, I I used to work about 40 hours every week,
Mm.
and while taking a full-time course load as a student, um, and I was also involved in three organizations in executive positions. In other words, I was not just a passive member; I was actually part of the leadership. Um, One day, I missed the shift at one of my jobs because I was tired and exhausted. I said, okay, let me just take a nap. I think I have a little bit of a break now. And I slept and I woke up an hour and a half later and I saw that I had like so many missed calls from my supervisor. Where are you? You missed work, blah, 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 blah. At that point, I realized that I needed to organize things better.
Mm.
And having a timetable is the best way to find that balance. The timetable was so key. So this was back in 2000 and something. I don't want to get people to guess my age, and it's fine, chef. So I was still an undergraduate. It was 2002. Um, and back then we didn't have like fancy cell phones that would have calendars. You can program things, program reminders. I simply went into Excel and I did everything from 6 a.m. in the morning up till 2 a.m. at night, Monday through Sunday. So I put in all my class schedule. So first of all, classes are my priority. I'm a student, so I put in my classes into the schedule. Okay, my jobs. When do I have my sheets? I populate those in there. Things that are fixed, things that don't really change from week to week. I put all those things in there. Meeting times at my different organizations. I plug those in there. Um, Once I'm done with all those fixed things, then flexible things like when I want to work on assignments, I was fortunate that some of my jobs were just sitting at a desk and
Mm.
I'll sit down for like 10 hours a week.
Mm.
So guess what? I doubled up and I did my homework during those periods as well. So I plugged in my homework during those time frames. Um, I actually had to program time to hang out with my friends and say, okay, fine, on this day, between this time and this time, I'm going to go find people just to like be with them, meet with them. Lunch, dinner was planned in there. Time to go to the gym was planned in there. Then time to sleep was also planned in there. Time to do my quiet time and have time with God. All of those things, I had to literally put them into the schedule. What time do I have to be at church? I don't just say, okay, fine, church is from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. No, I have to program in how long it's going to take me to get to church, how long I take to get back. I want this timetable to be as um, detailed as possible. Now, after you make that detailed schedule and detailed timetable, next thing is be flexible. That schedule should not now be the driving principle that, oh no, I'm going to be 5 minutes late. I must. No, no, no. Allow allow some wiggle room in there. So don't do things like I'm going to finish at 5 p.m. Okay, next one is start at 5:01. No, give yourself even like 15 minutes, 30-minute buffers in between. That way, even if you're running over, you still have enough time to make up in the next part because the schedule actually prevents stress from building up because now
Yes.
everything has been given an assigned time.
Yes.
You know that this homework that was given on Monday, it has to be due on this day. Don't start working on it the day before, 2 days before. Start doing it from the very first day you were given a homework problem or homework set. Start working on it that same day. Just do a little bit every day, and you'll be surprised at how much you're able to achieve. Make sure that study time is actually study time because some people they gather, they have a study group for 2 hours.
Mm.
And for 1 hour, 45 minutes, they're talking about all the different shows, all the different events, and everything else. And talk about the teachers, talk about the professors, talk about everything except the course that they want to study. It's like, oh, we have 15 minutes left. Let's quickly get in and get this thing done. No, try to create that sense of balance and stick to it. Will it work the first time? No. But even if you fail, don't just throw it away. maybe you have to actually adjust the schedule. Maybe this thing was a little bit unrealistic. Take it out, move it somewhere else, and you actually be surprised when you make a schedule how much free time you have. I thought I didn't have any free time, but when I made that schedule, I was like, wow, I have chunks of hours every day that I can do whatever I want to do with it. So,
Yes. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Prof. K. And and time management is something that I see most young people think it's old school method or old school timing, or old school style, I mean, and they don't really pay attention to that. So, like that person asks, how do I maintain uh, personal relationship with God, and not just with God, even with yourself? How do you maintain your well-being at the same time still maintaining good grades? I think you've just really explained and given detailed answer on that topic. Yes, time management is very important, and not another thing that helps in having a good time management is knowing your priorities.
mhm,
Um, because I see a lot of young people, you get into college, you don't know where you should place your priority. So, is your priority on clubs, or joining different associations, or focusing on your school or your spiritual life? So you need to like put it in terms of hierarchy. So, um, my relationship with God, I need to plan for it. I need to plan for my, maintaining good grades in my academics and understanding what is going on. And then I can be social and reach out to other people. And you, by the time you set that priority, you allot time, in accordance of importance as you plan for your. And if you do that, you'll see that you can achieve so much. A lot of people ask me, and I'm sure they ask you too, how do you achieve so much? You're doing a lot of things and you have children, and yet you're able to achieve so much.
mhm,
And that is a simple answer, knowing your priorities and using your priorities to
mhm.
set your time, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I would add one more thing to that.
mhm, mhm.
It does help to have a good support group.
Yes.
Um, because when you want to work on homework, I learned very quickly that in college, at least for homework, try not to work on homework by yourself, like on your
Yes.
own.
Yes.
Homework is when you want to use that as a group study. In other words, and I did this with all of my physics majors back then.
Mm.
We'll just get a room in the library. We'll all sit down in there and we'll start working on our homework. It's not that we're going to be talking and discussing. No, we're just going to be in that room. So if
Yeah.
I now have a question on a problem, guess what? Other people that are also working on the same problem, they're right there across from me. They'll be like, "Hey, Prakrit, hey, Gotham, what's going on?
Mm.
Do you guys, how did you guys approach this problem? Here's what I was doing. Is this the
Mm.
right approach?" Now, you're not doing it in a way that you want to just copy people's answers so you can actually get the
Yes.
problem done. No, because you want to understand what they're doing.
Mm. Mm.
And at that point in time, they can actually stop and explain that thing. Maybe there's actually a particular concept that you were missing that would actually allow you to just suddenly open up a huge level of understanding, a wave of understanding you never had.
Yes.
So that is what those times are for. So working with that as a good support group when it comes to homework set and studying for exams. But I also say that having a good support group for your mental health, there's some friends that you know that if I'm with these people, even if I'm feeling down, even if I'm feeling this way, I can be with them. Sometimes I don't even have to talk to them. Just being in their sphere, in their area, I just start feeling calm. I start feeling relaxed. I start feeling less stressed out. And I know some people that, if I'm really in going through some tough times, I can ask them to come pray with me. I can ask them for advice, do that. And it's very key also to, like Dr. Chiku was saying, having that personal time. That sometimes you just need time for yourself. Go watch a movie. Go, I don't know, get an ice cream cone. Go do something. Just go read a book or walk in the park or go for swimming lessons. I don't know. Do something that's fun for you. put that also into your schedule. That way it has its own space in there that nothing can come into that space. So that when you want to make an arrangement or meet up with someone else or make an appointment, you know that this 7 to 9 p.m. on Sunday, this is my time. I don't care who you are or what you are. This is my time, and I need to take it for myself to kind of rejuvenate yourself, to kind of refresh your mind and get yourself prepared for the next period.
Thank you so much. You know, when you said something in your response about people just copying answers, and in my mind, I was like, I can mention names of people that copied their way through through, through their degree. They are experts in copying, and they always come out with very good grades. And I'm like, I know you copied your way through this program. I mean, you copied all the answers from somebody, and so. And that would bring me to this question. Beyond grades, are there other things that really help in achieving academic excellence? You know, you said it earlier in
Mhm.
our discussion that some people have good grades, but when they get to work, you show that it's like they did not go to school. They don't know what they did, you know. So what are some other things, some other, factors that plays into achieving academic excellence?
Okay, so I would permit me to share two stories
Okay,
before I get into that.
okay.
So one of them also, someone saw my status and sent me an epistle,
Mm.
like an essay of 500 words on their own experience. They spoke about how they wanted to do something when they were in college, but they were just not. Maybe the style of the professors was not really allowing them to express themselves fully. So they fumbled their way through their first 2 years of college, and they didn't really do that great. But
Mm.
by their third year, things started clicking, and now they wanted to actually start doing well.
Mm.
And they started understanding there are more difficult classes that are actually related to their major. They
Mm.
did very well in those classes, but of course, your poor foundation, your poor beginning, already led that to the fact that when even though you had a great ending, your final GPA was still not as great. So she ended up with a poor grade. But she knew people that, like you said, they literally copied their way throughout college and they came out with a great grade. Working on their final project, she said that she knew what she was doing. Yeah, she had a poor grade, but that was because her beginning was bad, but her last 2 years were really good. And that's because she actually understood what was going on. So during their
Mm.
project, their capstone project, she actually knew what she was doing. She did really, really well on it. Those people that had excellent grades coming in were always coming to meet her to ask her questions. So it's like, we have this 4.0 GPA, and you know you have a 2.5 GPA. Please come help us so that we can actually do well on this thing.
Mm.
And she said that she knew people who graduated with good degrees or good grades that can't even defend it at all.
Mm.
If you ask them one question, you're going to just show that you're just going to embarrass them in public and show that they actually don't know anything in that area. So that's one story. The second story I'm going to share was one that I was personally involved in.
Okay.
My graduate school advisor went to meet another professor at my university. I went to Clemson University then for my PhD. So what he wanted to do was to form a collaboration between him and the other person, and he
Mm.
wanted me to be the one to now be doing the work for both professors.
Mm.
So I was sitting in a corner in that office. The two professors are sitting down across from each other talking, and the other professor said, "Yeah, I will never ever hire a 4.0 GPA student to come work in my
Mm.
lab." And in my mind, I'm thinking, "Oh my goodness, why will he say that? I mean, a 4.0 GPA student should be somebody who is really good and knows the material, very good at the content." And then he now went ahead to elaborate on what he meant. He said he would rather take a 3.0 GPA student to work in his lab than a 4.0 GPA student. And he shared his own experience that he actually had a 4.0 GPA student that came into his lab to work, and he thought, oh, yes, I've got one of the good students.
Mm.
The student had a good um, academic grade, but in terms of hands-on, working in a lab, being a very good experimentalist, the student was horrible.
Mm.
He said, okay, fine, you're smart because your 4.0 GPA shows that you are smart.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fine. I'm going to come to the lab. I'm going to show you. I'm going to demonstrate things. Maybe you need to see things being done in person, but you're a very sharp person. You have a 4.0 GPA. If I show you a few times, you'll be able to get it. So the professor came down to the lab,
Mm-hmm.
walking around, showing things. And then the student apparently, while the professor was showing him, professor said, "Okay, now let's go get this other equipment from here. I'm going to come back and do this." Professor said, like, he turned around and he didn't see the students at all. So it's
Wow.
like he's been talking to himself for like the last half hour. He didn't know when the student even left the lab and was not there again.
Wow.
And that's how he was done with that, because he now saw that there was another student that he thought, 3.0 GPA student, fine, just come, fine, let me just pity you, come do something. And this student was getting great results. They were publishing papers. I mean,
Wow.
it was a great experience. So he then told my advisor, and I'm just there like watching that. Why are they having the discussion in front of me? Are they trying to tell me something?
Mm-hmm.
You know? But in essence, having that great of a grade is not as much of an advantage as you might think.
Mm.
Now, it will
Yes.
allow people to actually say, okay, fine, this is a 4.0 GPA student. Okay, let me see what else they have. It might allow them to actually pick up your resume to now check and see
Yes.
what other skill sets you're bringing to the table.
Yes.
If you have a 1.0 GPA, I'm sorry, nobody would even, they'll be like, why is this person even applying to this job? It might be that you had two 4.0 GPAs, semester GPAs, your last year in college, and you were just fumbling around the first 3 years. But they're not going to look at that. They're just going to look at the final GPA, 1.85. Oh, let's not even bother. And that's how every other achievement you've done is just swept away. Um, so that that being said, the thing is your grades, um, they do open the door for you to get into certain places.
Yes.
If you don't have a certain minimum GPA, certain grad schools will not even look at your application.
That's true. True.
If you want to get around that, you would have to have a whole lot more things you're bringing on board. I mean, actually being able to publish a paper. So now talking about other things that might lead to academic success. Being able to publish a paper
Mm-hmm.
is actually a very good thing in your application packet. I will tell
Mm-hmm.
everybody now, when I finished my undergraduate degree, I had like a 3.1 or 3.2 GPA. It was kind of embarrassing for me because, everybody else in my thing, they're all getting like summa cum laude, magna cum laude, and they call me Kaide Karunwi, and everything was just quiet after that, you know. But
Yeah.
see where I am today, So in
Mm.
other words, that didn't really matter. But the
Mm.
thing was, I actually ended up publishing a paper,
Mm.
even though my GPA was that low. And that paper that I published actually became a huge thing on my resume, and actually allowed the graduate school to just call me and give me admission
Wow.
with funding.
Wow.
So once more, you want to get, so there's certain extracurricular activities you can engage in that will beef up your poor GPA, but you don't want to now make these things take up so much of your time that now they begin to eat into the time they're actually going to be studying for your actual classes. So in other words, you do need to maintain at least a B average.
Mm.
And in graduate school, I'll tell you this now.
Mm-hmm.
In graduate school, there are only two grades.
Mm.
You pass or
True.
you fail. Yeah, they might put a letter A, B, C, whatever. If you have an A in a graduate course, okay, fine. You've shown that you actually know or you did what was required of you. A B means that, you kind of failed this class, but we'll just let you pass because, yeah, okay, yeah, you at least showed you demonstrated enough understanding in certain areas. Fine, we'll give you a B. If you get a C in graduate
Mm.
school, you're going on probation.
Yes.
That's already the boundary in
That's true.
in um in graduate school. So in
Mm-hmm.
graduate school, anything C and below is of course a failing grade.
Yes.
And I had a friend that happened to him. He had one C, but that's what happens when you keep getting that minimum B average to maintain your graduate status.
Mm.
The moment you get one C, now your 3.0 is going to come to a 2 point
That's
something.
true. That's
Even
true.
if you have 100 3.0s, 100 classes with a B in it, and you have one class with a C, your grade will drop to a 2 point something, and that already puts you in that probation period. And if you do that the second semester and you can't pull your grade back up, you're going to be
You're
kicked out of
out.
grad school.
Yes.
So grades do matter in that regard,
Mm.
but the minimum grade I would say you need to maintain to ensure that you're still viable
Mm.
in any application, job, graduate school, or whatever is a B. You need to maintain
Okay.
at least a B,
Okay.
a 3.0 on the 4.0 scale.
Yes.
After that, what are some other things that you need? You need to focus more on critical thinking.
Okay.
Critical thinking makes you an extremely valuable member of any team. It doesn't matter
Mm-hmm.
what course you're in, what subjects you're in. It doesn't matter whether you're a physics major or an accounting person or
Mm.
going to medical school or doing law. Critical thinking means that you're able to take a set of information
Mm-hmm.
and look at it critically and look at it objectively to figure out what are actually the problems and what are some possible solutions. Let me look in my toolbox and see if I have enough tools to actually get this answer. It requires some flexible type of thinking.
Mm.
Um, those people, companies are going to be very, very hard pressed to fire them because you're showing that you're not just even demonstrating just a normal understanding of whatever knowledge you've learned up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying that no matter what problem you bring to me, I will critically evaluate it,
Mm-hmm.
know what things are important, what things are not
Yes.
important, and make a very good decision.
Yes.
I'll give an example of a medical doctor applying this concept.
Okay.
A patient comes to you with a broken arm. You
Mm-hmm.
can see the patient has a broken arm.
Mm-hmm.
I ask the patient, wow, what happened to you? And the patient says, well, I was eating some chocolate last night, um, and maybe I tried to get something that was on top of the cabinet or something, and I fell. But I think it's that chocolate I was eating that ever since I'd say it's that chocolate, I just felt a sharp pain in my arm. I don't know what's going on. That chocolate must have been very bad. That's what the patient tells you. But you as a doctor, you know that just eating chocolate would not magically break your arm.
Yes.
But then by the time you start listening to the information, oh, they climbed something. Oh, okay, let me ask you an extra question. Did you actually fall when you were trying to reach for that thing? Oh, yeah, I fell. Yeah, I crashed into the edge of the table and something. But yeah, no, it's that chocolate that was in my mouth at that time that I remember. The patient might try to give you false information, might try to give you extra things that are very useless to you making an assessment or a diagnosis on what the patient is
Yes.
experiencing. But
Yes.
by you critically looking at all the information they're giving to you, you can say, well, I know you think it's the chocolate, but I'm sorry to say it's not the chocolate that caused your arm to
Mm.
break. Okay, here's what happened. I can now do that. And that's just an oversimplified
Yes.
case. There are going to be situations where people will tell you that they have fever, they have this, they have that.
Yeah.
I have to diagnose whether they have like MS or malaria or some other
Mm-hmm.
disease and things like that.
Yes.
Um, so that's it. Critical thinking skills, I would say, is very important.
Yeah.
Number two, you have to learn to be patient, because patience requires that even if things don't work out, you still pause, you take
Yes.
your time to do things properly. Take your time to do things well, then just rush through things.
Yes.
Another skill set that you would need to be successful is that the ability to focus and to be determined to finish things to the very end,
Mm.
which is why when you publish a paper,
Yes.
it's a great indicator of all of these things that I'm talking about now. It shows that you were able to critically think through a problem,
Mm-hmm.
apply a possible solution, do some experiments to test it out, and come
Yes.
up with a conclusion. But it also meant that you actually finished the entire thing. It also meant that you were patient because things will not work the first time you do an experiment.
Yes.
If you do an experiment and it works the first time, I don't know, you're an extremely special person. And
Yes.
you didn't tell me what your trick is.
Mm-hmm.
But things will not work. And you have to be patient enough to go back and evaluate what has happened and move forward with that. And then the last thing I would say is having very good mentors
Mm.
and not being afraid to ask questions.
Yes.
Um, Many of us feel like we need to know everything, so we tend not to ask questions that, oh, if I ask them a question, they'll think I'm stupid.
Mm.
The time I threw that particular piece of knowledge out of the window, when my professor, who has been in academia and in industry for over 40 years,
Wow.
if he doesn't understand something, he'll ask me. And I'm thinking, look at this big professor asking me this question. Psh,
Mm.
it's such an easy thing. But then I wonder, but once he learns that thing, the way this man will now take this particular information I just taught him and apply it in ways that me I'm not even thinking about. I'm like, oh,
Mm.
now I see the levels to our understanding, because once more it goes down to, do you really and truly understand what it is that you have? If you truly understand it, you can apply it in multiple fields, not just the
Yes.
same way everybody's always doing things. And that is what will set you apart in any company. The fact that you're in a team and people know that, okay, people have known this technique for a long time, but
Yes.
you're like, can we apply it this way? I feel like maybe it
Yes.
might work. I don't know.
Yes.
Given those ideas, the team will be like, wow, this is our idea generator. Many teams need people to bring ideas. They
Ideas.
don't. They can do the work.
Yes.
They can do the calculation pretty well.
Yes.
Um, Somebody told me that I should come work for them. It was like a $250,000 a year.
Wow. Wow.
So
Really?
I'm looking behind so my wife is not listening to this conversation. Um, there's a $250,000 a year thing. It was for quantum computing.
Wow.
So they need people with a physics background in quantum mechanics and who've
Mm.
done research in quantum, in the quantum field, to
Mm-hmm.
come help them out. Quantum computers are the next set of computers that are coming out.
Mm.
And they need, because physicists have a way of always thinking critically about stuff and coming up with crazy ideas that people can now take and test.
Mm.
And they needed someone to come, so they're willing to pay you $250,000 to come generate ideas for them, and they will
Wow.
take the ideas and go work with it.
Work.
That is how important critical thinking is.
True. Wow. Wow. Wow, Prof, you've said so much now. You've given us you've given us a lecture. I'm going to go rewatch this section and try to break down everything, get everything that you've taught us this evening. And I just want to once again thank all those that have joined us. If you have any comments, you can put in your comment. You have any question you want to ask? I know Prof have said so much. Is there something you want to clarify? You can also just drop it down. I will take your question. We'll take your question. And Prof, you said a lot of things, and as you were talking, a lot of questions were just coming to my head. I'm like, should I ask this? I know we don't have all the time, but I'm going to divert a little bit. When we come to critical thinking, uh, this generation, or right now in the world we live, we have a lot of challenges, challenging our ability to critically think, and one of that is something like ChatGPT. Is a very nice tool. Is a wonderful tool. I use it. I love it. I love using it because it helps me. It tells me to do a lot of things. But you're a professor. How is it going to play into the factor of students thinking critically now? Because now you have a tool that can help you think, and it looks like everybody is going to get good grades at the end of the day. In fact, I was watching one TikTok video where the professor came to the class, and it was announcing to the students. He said, well, I gave all of you a test, and I noticed that 50% of you all used ChatGPT to generate your answers. so so the professor actually, he knew that they were going to do that. Okay, so he prepared for that, and he caught like 50% of the class getting their answers from ChatGPT. I know this is just a diversion, but let's just talk a little. How is it going to play into the academic area with getting grades and ability to think and um, uh, I mean, how is it going to play out? Just tell me what you think.
So, a quick aside, I will actually be teaching a class on artificial intelligence
Okay.
in medicine and biology next
Wow.
semester.
Oh,
One of our science department were like, "Oh, we need someone to teach a one credit class. Does anybody want to do?" I'm like, "Okay, sure, I'll teach a class." They're like, "What do you want to teach?" I said, "Sure, I'll do something on AI or machine learning or things like that,"
wow.
which is what
Wow.
ChatGPT is kind of based on.
Mm,
Um, and then I've spoke to a few of the professors in my department. Some of them said that one of them told me that for her organic chemistry test, she actually went into ChatGPT
okay.
and and told ChatGPT to actually prepare questions for her on this particular topic. And when he brought it out, she said she was actually surprised at how the question was framed. Like she was thinking that if I actually had to take time to frame the question, this is exactly what I was imagining. So your professors are actually using this thing in different ways. One of the other professors joked that, oh, right now he never composes any email by himself. And again, he tells ChatGPT to make up the email for him, grabs it, and then he edits it. And I think that's the key part. ChatGPT is going to be a tool. There was a time that, many years ago, it was Wikipedia that was the tool. Everybody just go and copy things from Wikipedia and put it in their report and say, yeah, this is my own essay. No, no, no. But now we have different software and things that can actually catch plagiarism and things of that nature. But the thing is, there is nothing we can do. ChatGPT is here. All right. It's not going to go anywhere else. So you have to learn how to use it. It's a good tool if you know how to actually harness its abilities. It should be like a first stop.
Okay.
It shouldn't be your final stop. So in other words, any response that ChatGPT gives to you, don't just say, okay, fine, wow, this is good, I'm just going to submit it this way. No. It should give you the framework, the body on which to now build on. There are things you should still add and tweak and modify and change to actually make it a good work. Don't be lazy enough to just take the first response that comes and just submit that. No. But ChatGPT is also limited. It's still going through its learning process. So if you notice, whenever it generates an answer, it will ask you if this response is okay, or should it generate a new one. If it's generate a new one, now they've added a new feature that will now ask you, okay, is this better than the old one that I gave to you? The system is actually learning to now know that, okay, this one I gave you, is that better or not? And then it now tries to modify or change those responses. It also syncs it across multiple levels where people all over the country, all over the world, some of them might be asking very similar questions to what you're asking, and it's learning and trying to see which answer to always put at the very top of the possible solutions. Everything would have like a percentage as to, oh, if they ask this question, maybe 95% of the time, this was kind of the response that most people loved. This is the next one, and it will kind of like rank them, different types of machine learning. We don't have to go into that right now, but it's a great tool to learn how to use. Some tips on how to use it. Before you start, you can always tell it to assume, tell ChatGPT, assume you are an organic chemistry professor. Assume you're a blah, 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 blah. So once it now goes in there, it makes sure that it has access to those set of tools in that particular field of study, and can now ask it, okay, fine, now that you assume that you're in this thing, can you get questions on this and this and this? And if you've been giving questions in school, because ChatGPT can also like write some basic programs for you in different languages like Python or C++ or what have you. The thing though to note is that it's always going to give you like a simplified version of the program. You still need to go in and tweak it and adjust it and modify it for yourself. Because if you just use it by itself, that's actually plagiarism. And there's actually a student right now in my college that's going through that at this point, where his English professor, he was getting an A, and I think on his final test or something, he must have done something with ChatGPT, and so they gave him an F. So they just failed him the whole class. So right now, the situation has been escalated to the provost of the university. I don't know what the resolution would be, but be very careful about using it for your classes. Make sure that if you're going to use it, find out what your professor's point of view is on this. I don't mind students using it. Well, most of my tests are paper-based tests, so it's not really going to help you on that. Yeah, but the thing is that for those of you who are still in undergrad, I don't know if you know Khan's Academy, KHAN. They have a lot of tutorials and lectures on different fields of study. They found a way to sync an AI system into their Khan's Academy that would actually go through step-by-step solutions to a problem and kind of go through the things with you. It will
Okay.
actually teach you
Okay.
as opposed to just giving you an answer. So there are
Okay.
ways to still get ChatGPT to enhance your study and your learning. And
Okay.
sometimes I would not lie. I mean, this thing can create all kinds of stuff. I told it to create a business plan on blah, blah, blah to sell in this market, in this country. And
Mm-hmm.
the more detail you give to it,
The more
the more refined your answer would be. And but that's always your first draft.
draft.
You
Yeah.
now take that draft and now modify it and tweak it how you will, for whatever the purpose is.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Thank you so much. And that goes back to what you said that you see, life is not just about grades. College is not about grades. Graduate school is not just about grades. Yeah, it's good to have good grades because it's going to open doors of opportunities for you. I mean, and as you were speaking, also, I remember that I've got to interview in my workplace. I'm privileged to interview a lot of people for some positions we have in our company. And the resume looks so good. In fact, when you read the resume, I will be so intimidated to even interview them. I'm like, how will I interview this guy? But by the time we start talking and we start asking questions, they cannot really explain what they did. So you can tell that they don't really have that understanding. And so it's very important, even as we have all these tools like ChatGPT and AI helping us and everything, we should use it to help our critical thinking. We should use it to help us understand the subject matter instead of just trying to get good grades. Because, yeah, we can come up with good grades, but well, when you have the opportunity to get interviewed, okay, then you will still have to answer those questions. I mean, when they ask you some questions during interview, you will not say, "Wait, let me check my AI bot to see what is saying." You still have to answer. So you need understanding of these things, and that's what we are trying to establish here. That yeah, it's good to have good grades. And Professor gave us at least a minimum grade. You said a B, right? A B at
Mhm.
least
Yeah.
in what you do. But at the same time, make sure you understand what you're doing if you want to really go far in your academics. Now, let's just talk about, we are in the mental health month, actually. Um, and I know this is one of the things that affects a lot of young people that causes mental health crisis when it comes to not reaching to their potential, not getting good grades.
Mhm.
They started as a freshman, and it was not as exciting they thought it was going to be. Everything just started building down, and it's affecting their mental health. What will you just say to that? How would you advise those kind of people?
Yeah. Um, Honestly, I think the toughest time in college is that first semester, maybe even up to the second semester. That is your first time in college, because a lot of people are coming from a high school system where their teachers like literally were pulling their hands and dragging them through their exams and their tests. I was a tutor for a young girl back in Atlanta, and this girl was given a test. It was a math test. She didn't do too well. The teacher said, "Okay, fine, go back and learn how to do it, and maybe I'll give you a redo." So she brought it back home and gave it to me. I was like, "Oh, we've gone through this concept." So I asked her while I'm sitting down there. I didn't do it. I said, "Okay, why don't you go through and try to solve as much as you can, and whatever you can do, we will now go over what the issues are." So she did it, and she actually did pretty well. And I went over what the little things that she didn't really know. So she resubmitted her redo, nice, perfect score. And then the following week, the teacher gave the exact same question, exact same, nothing changed. The
Wow.
girl failed it again.
Really?
She did this test 4 times that semester.
Wow.
Failed it every single time. Then I realized that I don't think she's failing it because she doesn't know it. So for her, so she now come and tell me that, "Oh, do you know what I did this time? I tried to write all the answers. I put it inside my calculator, and I did this and this and this and this. Or I
Mm,
programmed my calculator this way. Or I took a paper and I stuck it inside the cover of my calc." So she's spending the time thinking of different ways to cheat, as opposed to
mm,
actually learning this thing.
yeah.
And it just showed me that certain people don't they don't care, because for them they know that whether they know it or not, they're still going to give them a passing grade because it's a private school. They pay so much money to go to this school, they can't afford to fail. The problem now becomes when these same students come to college. I'm sorry, in college, they don't care whether you're anyone. If like don't show up to class, by the time they've dropped you from the class, and you don't even know that they've even dropped you from the class. You've been late for your class on your final, on your transcript at the end of the semester. You'll be like, I thought I signed up for math 240. When did they drop me from this class? Well, when you don't show up, they'll drop you. When you don't do well, things will happen. In college, there's very little tolerance for anything. And what that means then is that you really want to start off really well. Your first year is actually one of the easiest years for you. And that's when you want to really pad your GPA. Get all those A's, because as things begin to go on, it's going to become harder to get those A's so easily. They'll require more effort and more work. But once more, if you don't do too well during the beginning, it's okay. But with the mental health part of things, that usually comes out when you begin to get stressed out, and that stress comes from the fact that you now begin to feel overwhelmed. That you know you're behind on this, and more things are now piling on, and then you don't know who to go to ask questions or who to go to for help, and then you try to internalize and try to see how to figure things out on your own, and then you get into this endless and vicious cycle where before you know it, you're going to implode on yourself. So that's why I said towards the beginning that you really do need a support group. You need a support system. One of the things, some of us, our cultures don't encourage us to ask professors questions or help, but you need to learn how to do this. In fact, let your professor be the one to say, you're asking me too many questions. In fact, stop coming to my office hours. Let them be the one to tell you to stop. Don't try to help your professor and say, well, I don't want to disturb my professor. I don't think they'll have time for me. I mean, this semester, I had 7 hours of office hours each week. I was just always by myself, thinking about what I'm going to do, or playing games, or I don't know, just twiddling my thumbs in my office, just waiting. Some people thought that they would just be disturbing, but some other students, when they saw that they were not doing well, immediately they came, and when they knew that, I could come to office hours every single day, sure, I'll be there. And they showed up, and they saw their grades change. So I would say that definitely if you begin to feel overwhelmed, or you begin to feel anxiety about how you're doing and things like that, don't wait until it's too late. Immediately you start feeling that wave of panic and anxiety, reach out to someone, reach out for professional help. Most of our colleges, especially in the US, they have like a counseling center, they have a medical center. You talk to them, you talk to your school advisor. I advise a bunch of students, and when they're not doing well, they come talk to me early. We can figure out how to help them, kind of be like that intermediary between them and the professor of the class they're taking. We're also another resource for students to access, but never ever just suffer in silence and think that nobody will understand what you're going through. We've all been there. I had a semester in college where I was super depressed. I think I failed half of my classes. Yes, I failed my classes. I had to retake one of them. But the pressure I was feeling was from different things. Part of it was from financial stuff. Part of it something my family was going through, and I just could not focus in school. I just could not focus, and I made a mistake of not really reaching out to people for help or assistance, and it wasn't until the end of the semester when now it's even too late to even try to even recover any grade. As professors, one of the things we hate seeing after the final exam has been taken is, oh, hey, professor, yeah, what can I do to, I think I'm going to fail the class, and I think I'm going to get an F. But I'm a scholarship student. I need to have at least a 70 in your class to be able to keep my scholarship. What can I do? What assignment can you give me to actually help me make this grade? I'm like, what are you doing? You want me to give, so you call it extra credit, but it's extra work for me. I have to grade that. I wasn't planning on grading this thing. I have to also make up and create a new assignment just for you. I don't believe in doing that, and I'll say that right now. For me, the way I see things, I have to actually, if I'm going to give you a special assignment, I have to extend it to the whole class.
Mm.
And if I have a class of
So,
about 50 students, do I really want to grade 50 extra assignments? Because I tell you, everybody wants to do the extra credit too.
yeah,
Other people might be borderline on their grades. So, in
yes.
other words, that is one thing you definitely don't want to be asking your professors to do.
Mm.
Um, that's why during the semester you always ask questions, you always engage with them. If you see that you didn't do well on the first test, in fact, take your first test, go back on your own and try to figure out, let me do this again and see if I actually understand what was going on. Whatever you don't understand, it actually enables you to ask your professor. And these sort of things help to limit the stress that will now lead to you having a mental breakdown or a nervous breakdown.
Wow, wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much,
Mhm.
Prof. K. We are beyond the 1 hour mark. But if you have any questions, comments, please don't hesitate to drop it. You can just type into the comment. We'll see your comments, so we'll see your questions. I will take your questions and answer them. Um, Maybe just one more question before we round up, and we'll see if there are any other questions on the chat. Um, it's let's ask ourselves now, since we have, and we should know, we have the foundation of God in what we do. But does God really play a role in our academic success or career pursuit? Is there a God factor that really, and how does it play a role? And how does it not play a role? Okay, yeah. Mhm.
All right. So I'm a Christian, and one of the areas of one of the verses I love in the Bible, one of my favorite verses in the Bible, is actually Proverbs chapter 3, from verse 5 and 6. That is, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. You know, the God factor is where God is saying in that particular verse that don't lean on your own knowledge or understanding. You need to rely on me. And what most people may not know, and I'll just share this now to elaborate on that particular
Yes.
point, is, I actually went to a technical college, community college in Nigeria called Yaba College of Technology. Um, and I spent 4 semesters there. The first semester when I got there, so this was in Nigeria. The way things work in Nigeria, um, when you get admitted into a program, they had like multiple admission lists. So there was like the first list, people actually did well, passed all the basic requirements and everything. I was on something called the third list. By the time my name came out to come to school, to attend this program, they had 1 month left to the end of the
Oh,
semester.
wow.
So I'm coming. No, I think it was like 2 weeks left because
Wow.
they had to extend it. So I literally came in when all the major assignments and assessments have already been done. All that's left is just the final exam.
Wow.
So I'm like, okay, I mean, how am I even going to succeed? I haven't attended a single class. I haven't done any assignment. I haven't done anything. How am I going to do well in this program? And I realized that I can't. So that's when I knew that, okay, I have to rely on God. Like, this is the God factor right there. So I had to pray and say, God, please, I don't know what's going on. You need to help me out. Yeah, I'm smart. I was intelligent and all that good stuff, but I even knew that was not going to get me anywhere. So suddenly the school came out and said, okay, we're going to extend the semester by another 2 weeks. So now we have a month. Okay,
Wow.
fine. I have to study about seven courses, and I have to figure out what's going on in these 7 courses before the final exams come. Okay, God, I don't know. We're going to have to work this out somehow. I'll just cut a long story short. That I had 4 semesters in this place. That was my second best semester ever.
Wow.
In fact, I think I had like the second or the third best GPA at the end of that first semester. And I'm like, I was barely even there. I mean, I worked myself ragged, but I knew that was a God factor. Now, the second semester, I'm like, okay, now we're starting to get we're all on the same playing field. Well, I'm going to show you people that I'm a very smart person. You guys are going to see who Coyote Karunwi is. Oh, you're in trouble today. That was my worst semester. So,
Interesting.
yeah, and so like the last semester also was my second best semester where I
Mm,
actually relied more on God because I actually had a lot of other assignments and things I
mhm,
was doing.
mm,
I couldn't really study as much, not because I didn't want to study.
mhm,
There were things out of my control.
mm,
But I had once had to rely on God for that, and God did help out and help me to do well. So I say all of that because you might feel that yes, actually you do know this material, you know this content, you're pretty good with numbers, you're pretty good at this and this technique and that,
mm.
and can do all of that. But the factor actually ensures that you actually have what the Bible calls good success.
Sure,
Not just being successful, having a good success.
sure.
Um, I One of the key things I always tell people is build up on your relationship with God. Learn to see how God relates with you. How does God talk to you?
Mhm.
Because if you actually become very sensitive to how God talks to you, you'll be surprised that God will actually even start showing you things like, what the questions will be like,
Yes,
or what particular chapters the professor is going to focus on,
yes,
or even what concepts you need to try to master and understand.
yes.
Or God can even just lead you to homework problems or just problem sets somewhere that you just be like, wow, it's like the professor is taking all their questions from this bank over here,
Hmm.
those sort of things. But it requires you to have that personal relationship with God where you can actually hear Him.
Yes.
Um, Hearing God speak to you is also very important in other areas of your life, not just even in your
Yes.
academics. But I would definitely say that I would not be where I am today. I mean, there are people that are successful without hearing from God. I'm
Mm.
not going to deny that. But I know that for me, I would not be where I am today if, God did not intercede on and actually intervene in so many situations in my life.
Great. Yes, wonderful. Sure, I agree with you. Absolutely. Like, there is no time I would have told a lot of stories of how God really played a big role in my success. In fact, in medical school, at the beginning of my medical school, I thought, I got this. I'm smart. I'm going to scale through. I didn't know how to involve the Holy Spirit in my study. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The boy comes to be part of the discussion. Yeah, so I didn't know how.
Hello.
And he's smiling. He's really smiling, like he understands everything we've been saying. Yeah, so I didn't understand how to involve the Holy Spirit in my studies. So it was very difficult, and I struggled so much until like towards my last year of medical school, where I decided to involve the Holy Spirit, and everything just became easy. And like you were saying, the Holy Spirit showing you questions that are coming out and things that are coming out, and where to focus on when you have like a very a vast syllabus, a vast um, river of stuff you need to stream through. So it's a lot, and definitely. And I just want to encourage those going through some tough times in the academics, that God still helps. Yes, everything we've said is very important. Um, Having good habits and for studying, and having a goal, having your time management, and everything we said very important. But God still also plays a very big role in ensuring we have good success. And I don't know where you've been. For those of you who have joined us online, I don't know where you are right now in your academic pursuit or career pursuit. I just want to encourage you that yes, God has a plan for you, and God has a purpose for you. And like Professor K said, uh, do not lean on your understanding. If you lean on God, He will direct you on what to do, and ask Him for grace and strength to be able to work to do what you have to do. And I know the Lord will help you. And in the future, we will have good stories to tell. and you also share stories like I and Professor K here as sharing stories. Is there any other question? Let me see to the chat. If there's any other question or comments or anything. Oh, Spiritus Mama said, oh, cute smile for Komi. Yes. Yeah. Any other question for Professor K? Um,
Or
if
maybe someone wants to share their own personal experience where
yeah,
grades mattered or grades did not matter. Would also love
yeah.
to hear that.
Yeah, if you'd like to
Mhm.
do that, you can actually request to join maybe at this time. And if you want to share, and we'll see how to bring you in for the few minutes we have left, and you can speak to us and share your experience. Thank you so much, Prof. K. This has been a very enlightening discussion. You've said so much, and we've learned so much. We're going to upload this video online so that we can, those of us that need to rewatch it, you are not part of the beginning when we started. You can go back and listen to everything we have discussed. But surely, I believe this video will help you and will help others. So also share. We are going to upload it on our YouTube channel, so you can share it with your friends and share it with other people you care about, so they can also learn from what we have discussed. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Thank you, Professor K. We really appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming along. Let me see some comments. Say thank you to our professor for joining us. We really appreciate our professor. Thank you. Say thank you, and we look forward to the next section of Matters Arising, where we also discuss another wonderful topic. Thank you.
All
Have a
right.
great evening,
Thank
and
you.
bye, Komi.
Goodbye.
Bye. Bye. Have a great night, everyone. A good night. Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Bye.